Welcome to the Veroscope channel, where we're going to continue the forensic linguistics analysis for intelligence on Nicole Kessinger, and we're continuing the series. If you're new to the Veroscope channel, there's already a couple of parts, so do go and subscribe, and we'll see you over there in the comments. So we're going to carry on with the police interview itself, and then we're going to continue analyzing the words that she uses, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how the science of forensic linguistics and statement analysis actually work. So we're going to include a little bit of teaching, not too much. Don't worry, you don't need your pads and your pens. There's no test afterwards on this video. So without further ado, let's listen to what she has to say, and then we'll dive back into the analysis.
Because we don't have it on tape, we discussed prior to turning the tape on Tuesday, which would have been the 14th of August, you had read some newspaper articles on the 13th and the 14th that regarded this case. You had also had a conversation with Chris at some point during the day on Monday. And on Tuesday, because of what you found, specifically what you said was, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you found out that his wife was pregnant.
Yes. And
you did not know that prior, and you found that out via the newspaper articles, and that caused you concern.
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? And it made me...
That's interesting, isn't it? We'll look at that in more detail. She's talking about, well, I just realized he's lying to me, and if he can lie to me about that, maybe he can lie about other stuff. What do you think about that? I think she's lying. We closed the loop. She thinks he's lying. She knows he's lying. I know she's lying.
Realized that maybe his wife was in danger at that point, and it was day two, and she still wasn't home.
What did that cause you to do with your phone, though?
Oh, what? When I deleted those? Yeah. I was just kind of grossed out by him.
We have another example of questioning the question, buying cognitive time, and then minimizing I was just the action afterwards. Are you noticing? Are you putting in the deceptive flags? The deceptive language is coming out fast and furious. We're not identifying most of it. If you're interested in learning how to go into the granular details, some of the early Veroscope videos explain how we mark up a document itself, the different colors that are used. So, for example, words like because or so are reasons why, they're explanations why. Often they're the excuse type of words, and we'll mark those in blue, and other words like time is marked in green. So phrases like before I knew it, or by the time I, and these are sort of missing time gaps, aren't they? These little phrases that are used. By the time I, that's missing time. They use it to fill in the gap. And do you remember yesterday we talked about how liars are truthful for most of the statement, almost all of it, in fact, and they only cut out that 2 or 3 minutes they want you not to know about, and they stitch it back together again. Do you remember that? So we're going to be going into all of that in a bit more detail, but let's carry on now with the tape. It shows my age, doesn't it, with the video. With the YouTube.
To be honest with you, I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now, but you just lied to me, and I don't want to see this come over my phone anymore. So I removed it.
So you already said, but you removed text messages?
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I mean, that's what it was.
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I've interfered in the murder investigation of 2 little girls and their mother who was pregnant because he lied to me. I mean, it's just, she is off the scale. Now, why is she deleting the information? I don't think it's because they exchanged a few texts that, perhaps a bit sexting. I think there's pushiness. I think there's controlling, and I think that's what she's concerned about. The planning. Maybe not where it's so blatant that they're literally discussing not getting rid of the children, but perhaps getting rid of her in some way. And maybe the children weren't in the plan. Maybe they woke up. Maybe they became witnesses. Who knows? But if there's something in those texts that she doesn't want to be seen that's not to do with embarrassment because of the sexual nature of the texts, but because of the content of the words to do with the crime, a huge difference. She's deleting like crazy, and she's telling him to delete like crazy, and she's not sure what the detective knows. Do you remember all of that? Let's carry on from that position.
It was the hurt that made me delete it, and then it was the lie that made me.
So now it's the hurt, her hurt, the narcissistic type off the scale. 2 little dead children, and it's her hurt and the lies as to why she's interfered in the murder investigation and deleted all of the evidence. Bullshit.
Start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
And that's when you decided to come forward?
Yes.
Okay. So just for context.
And that's when you decided to come forward. The detective gives her a lot of say yes or say no questions where it's safe. I think he senses that she's flighty and could go and shut down at any moment. So nearly all of his language is pacifying. He's treading the fine line of keeping her in the room to extract as much information and intelligence out of her as possible without needing the arrest. Let's see what happens next.
Yes.
When people delete stuff off phones, usually we go, hold on a second.
No. It wasn't
that's
malicious at all. It wasn't.
No. It wasn't malicious at all, she says as she sits there with her arms crossed. No. It wasn't malicious at all. Those of us who have been following these Veroscope videos for a while will recognize that pattern. No. Do you recognize that?
Malicious at all. He lied to me. It just hurt. Like I had never.
Notice the self-censorship. The sentences begin. The mind self-censors because it doesn't like the way the sentence is going. It's revealing too much. So it stops. So she says, he, let's begin the sentence again. He, do you see? So that's sensitivity and self-censorship. So although we entered the statement believing her, believing the narrator, because that's how we enter in our own mental frame, not because we want to be nice to the person, we believe you, not because of that reason, but because we want to mentally enter the frame balanced, able, our channel 2 sensor for the small words, for instance, needs to be on. It can't be, although over time, I think I'm self-censoring myself, aren't I? Although over time we get to know what we feel about the truth, we try each new time that we look at the statement to enter with an open mind. Does that make sense? So we believe the speaker until they talk us out of it themselves. Now, she's talked us out of it because she's got deception flags everywhere. It's hard to get a sentence out of her without it being deceptive. She's hiding information from the detective. She's deleted intelligence and evidence. She's reluctant to let them see anything. She's trying to control the interview. She's trying to control the phone call that happens later. all her actions are either deceptive or controlling or narcissistic or manipulative. This is not the actions of an innocent person. Let's look at some of the analysis that has been done. What we've heard so far really is we've heard her describe how she found Chris an apartment, designed a custody schedule, audited his finances, and built the plans for a new life. But the way she said all of that is through a word salad. And she's so difficult to listen to, it's hard to pick up. It's just spewed out. Some people would think that I don't like her. She presents all of this as evidence of how responsible, how caring, and how independent she was. She reframes it all. Now, obviously, I'm not qualified to determine if she is narcissistic or not, but she certainly demonstrates that type of behavior. It's kind of cool having 2 Christmases, she says. So listen, here's one of the lessons, and it will change how you listen to people for the rest of your life. When someone tells you what they did, and don't forget, on the Veroscope channel, we're going to be going into detail about liars and exactly how they do it and exactly how the gaslighting techniques work and how to defend yourself against lies and gaslighting. So do subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you to those who are also spreading some of the Veroscope message to other people on YouTube. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. Now, when someone tells you what they did, listen to the claim and then listen to the content. The claim is what they say they were doing. The content is what they actually describe doing. So there's a difference. And when the claim and the content match, you've got a consistent account. And when they do not match, you've got a question worth asking. Nicole's claim comes at the start of the segment that we've all watched. She says she encouraged Chris to reconcile with Shanann. She said, I thought I had convinced him to try to make peace with her. And she even says she told him, if you guys work on this, I'm out. I won't do the vocal fry thing. Don't want to scare anyone. So, no, but listen, that is the claim. Nicole Kessinger, the responsible girlfriend, pushing a married man to go back to his wife. And don't forget, at the beginning, she said, oh, but I didn't see the ring. It's not my fault. Don't look over here, look over there. That was her language. It's not the language of somebody helping. She's convincing rather than conveying consistently, and she's hiding rather than giving the information. It has to be dragged out of her like blood from a stone. This is not the language of an innocent lady. It's kind of cool having 2 Christmases and, like your parents get to go be happy doing whatever it is they want to do with their lives, and they don't have to be in a situation that's probably not good for the kids because it's not good. Do you see the complete and utter word salad? But within it, there are real messages. She has a sort of hypnotic language pattern, and I wonder whether she's influenced Chris in that way. She listed the benefits of divorce to a man that she claims she was encouraging to reconcile. So do you see the difference? We look at what they actually do versus the claim. And we do that by slowing. So what the deceiver tries to do when the claim and what actually happened are different is they spew word salad fast. So that becomes its own signal, its own deception marker in its own right. But let's go back to some of the video first.
Felt like he'd ever lied to me before, and it was a big lie. I mean, telling somebody that you're in the midst of a divorce and then you have a wife that has a 15-week-old baby on the way is a huge thing. And I was very taken back, and it was hurt. And so at that point I like deleted it. I had a few.
So did you notice that? And the hand action. So at that point, I deleted it. She self-censors and stutters. I do stutter, by the way. I'm not lying. I do sometimes. But did you notice that? The over self-censorship right at important points. Now remember, in lying, what the scientists did was they made an error. Very quickly, they made an error. They were measuring the whole statement. And of course, most people are telling the truth most of the statement. But do you also remember we talked about how there are two channels in the brain and how the big words come from a separate part of the brain and the small words from another part? And we talked about how motorcycle accidents were one way of demonstrating that if someone hurts their brain in the part that's responsible for the big words, they struggle to produce those. And if they hurt their brain in another part of the brain that's responsible for the small words, they struggle to produce the small words in rehab. And so we know that way. But we also know other ways. So look at this. When people do a slip of the tongue, I left the garage in the car. In other words, perhaps they're hungover, it's early in the morning, whatever. But they get the word order wrong, don't they? There's been a little hiccup in the part of the brain responsible for the production of the large word language, not these small words like the pronoun I. Do you see? But the point is, these words, like car and garage, the brain will often swap them around. You'll notice yourself when you make this sort of error. But the little words never change. Isn't that interesting? And if you think about being Sherlock Holmes for a moment, if you know that the little words never change, but only the big words do under stress, let's say, then possibly, and we'll show you exactly how, then possibly there's a way of being able to tell who's lying, because the little words, A, come from a part of the brain that doesn't know it's supposed to lie, so it uses the little words that are correct for the truth, and they never change order. Those two things can lead us to intelligence within every single statement that's ever been written in the history of mankind being able to write. If it's recorded, Veroscope can now read the two channels. In other words, we can understand better the mental state of the writer and if they were being deceptive in their writing or truthful. Because in truthful writing, the big words and the little words are in harmony. There's no stutter, there's no static, there's no interference when it's measured scientifically. We can literally, mathematically tell that the two parts of the brain, and we're truthful beings, we're in harmony. As much as we can tell when somebody is being deceptive. Now, how do we know in more detail? Well, there's a guy called Garrett, and we are going back to Nicole, don't worry, but it's worthwhile learning a little bit of the science and the history behind how we know who's lying. Merrill Garrett was his name, and he was a psycholinguist. a scientist who studies how the brain produces language. And he'd been collecting speech errors for years, these types of errors, the Sunday morning hangover errors. He'd been collecting them. Hopefully they weren't his. The mistakes people make when they talk, slips of the tongue, jumbled words. And he noticed something odd. And this is the wonderful thing about science. When people swapped words around by accident, the content words, the nouns like the car, the verbs like the drove, swapped with other content words. Someone trying to say, I left the car in the garage, might accidentally say, I left the garage in the car. The nouns traded places, but the small words, as we've just learnt, pronouns like I, articles like the, tenses like the past tense, etc., they never moved. They stayed exactly where they were. The grammar held, and it held still while the content words danced around inside it. Garrett realized this meant the brain builds sentences in two stages, two different processes running at two different levels. So it's not just the motorcycle accidents. Garrett also confirms through his own studies. And then we have Levelt in 1989, a Dutch guy, a Dutch scientist, Wilhelm Levelt, or Willem rather, the director of the Max Planck Institute. Now, Planck has a famous word, I can't remember it line for line, but it goes along the lines of, if there's a paradigm shift in science, in other words, if we've discovered that the old scientists, didn't look at the uh, um, resolution correctly, and some of them will resist being wrong. It's natural, it's ego. Let's admit it. We're all human. No one likes to be wrong, and so they resist for a while, a couple of years, let's say, and they pick holes and they say, "Oh, your spelling mistake," and look at your grammar, and you got 1 decimal point wrong. But ultimately, the science is the science. And eventually, Max Planck said the old scientists eventually come round. I think he actually said we have to wait for them to die before the paradigm shift exists. But the younger scientists, those who haven't made the errors and don't have the skin in the game, they're the first to accept the new truth. And they're the ones that produce the replications, and it becomes then accepted. But Levelt, the Dutch scientist, I got sidetracked by the Max Planck Institute there. He mapped the entire system, and his book, Speaking, From Intention to Articulation, is the textbook that every psycholinguistic in the world still uses. And what Levelt showed us is that the small words are built by the part of the brain that does not take instructions from the part that plans what you want to say. How about that? So then, that part of the brain is not, let's say it's you that's lying, is not going along with your plans. It has got another agenda, the truth. That part of the brain, when it produces the small words, it produces the truth. Now, you can consciously change it, and you can go back to a written statement, let's say if you haven't pressed send yet, and change it, if you know what you're doing. And why would you? Why would you bother? But you can manipulate it if you know exactly what you're doing so that it can't be found forensic linguistically. But at conversational speed, you can't do that. It comes from the unconscious. And what this means is that there are innocent people in jail today who have a statement sitting in a filing cabinet that we can read for the first time, both channels, both intents. We'll be able to say very quickly, not exactly what the truth is, but we'll be able to say if they're being truthful or if they're not being truthful. Does that make sense? And then combined with other ways and other evidence, and everything gets weighed up. Everything we can do to advance truth, we should. That's my point. So, the two areas of the brain, and they can be independently damaged. And that's how we know. And that's how we know that the transmission of all language is happening on these two channels. Now, your gut feel, when channel 1 communication and channel 2 communication are not in harmony, your unconscious mind and your gut know. It knows. And sometimes you listen to it, and most of the time you don't. Isn't that true? If we look back in life, we knew, but we didn't listen. And the more attuned that you become to picking up channel 2, and of course detectives are, because they've had a career of dealing with people every single day. I mentioned in another video, hairdressers or anyone who constantly deals with people, their channel 2 antennae is extremely well developed. They are able to tell who are the bullshitters from or not. They just know, and this is why. So it's not like we're making people better at spotting lies. All we've really done is showed why they're good at it. Now, what's the benefit? Well, if we can show why they're good at spotting liars, then we can get better at it ourselves. Do you see? Knowing why helps us go forward. And that's why I've published all of this, the breakthroughs, the science. I've published it openly on Open Science Framework. And on my video description, I have a link to all of the science papers. And all the scientists around the world are invited to replicate. And also there are 84 or something like that. I forget the numbers. They keep getting added to every week. Experiments and predictions for them to carry out now that we know everybody was looking at the wrong resolution from the data. And here's the wonderful thing. The scientists have got all of their data, which have been collected over 60 years, that can now be reanalyzed at a different resolution. And look what happens. We've seen this before. It used to be a coin flip, but look what happens when we start looking at the other way. So with the small words on, we get an increase in performance. The small words on and at specific locations in the statement. Remember, we all tell the truth for most of the statement, maybe 95% of it. We only cut out that 3 or 4 minutes we don't want the other people to know about, and then we stitch the tape back together. But it leaves a little lesion because there's a time gap. But if we ignore the vast majority of the statement, which is truthful, and hone in at a specific location, how do we know where? Through the deceptive markers. Well, look what happens then. These scientists, they did this and they got 75%. And then we have Isabel Picconell, the best. She put all 3 on. In other words, all the other scientists, they were comparing the liar to 1,000 other people, let's say, for some reason, instead of comparing the liar to themselves. And when all 3 are on, look what she got. Well done, Isabel. She obviously knows what she's doing. And I suspect that she has individual analysis skills. But she knows instinctively to do this. But now we've got the science which shows why she was correct. Isn't that wonderful? She was correct. She was correct for a long time. When did she do this? I think it was over a decade ago. And she's been right all this time. Here we are. Look, 2013. She's been right all this time. Anyway, let's go back to the video.
More quick things to say to him, and then I just got rid of him. That's literally what I did. I just cut him out of my life. It would have honestly been like a bad breakup kind of thing. Like, if none of this other stuff would have happened, that's what it would have been. That would have been the end of it.
The information was not destroyed because there was anything in there that would be harmful to you or potentially to Chris at this point, but harmful to you in particular. That's not why you did it.
No.
You did it out of, excuse my language, this guy.
It's a shame that the statement gives her statements for her to say yes or no to, and all of the statements he gives her, anyway. Let's carry on.
As an asshole, so I'm getting rid of him, and I'm getting this stuff off my phone.
That was like me kicking him out of my life.
Okay.
And then, like I said, and then realizing that he lied, that was when I was like, okay, maybe his family.
Did she just look at the camera then? She is thinking. She's thinking. Did you see that? She looked at the camera.
Is in danger, and they're not coming back, and they're not staying with a friend.
Yeah, when did I go over there? Tuesday morning?
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday.
I called you Wednesday morning.
That's when we started discussing you guys.
Oh, I think she's going to get tired again and hungry. Let's wait and see.
Need to get everything that...
No, thirsty.
You can understand the importance of...
Oh, no question. We were...
Like I said, people lie, phone records don't, and they really help specifically establish dates and times.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a very good grip on that in this case already, but there may be a time when we go, we need to know something else, and then we would have it. We don't want to lose it, and that's really what it is for us.
What is she doing with her eyes? The squinting thing. Does anybody else see that? What is she doing?
If we lose information that later on we go, man, I wish we would have got that. And we may never even use these. We may never even look at them. But if we have it now, then we don't worry about losing it. So I appreciate you being cooperative and giving it to us.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wrote was text messages between Chris Watts and attachments. Okay? So, because we're talking about the photographs, unfortunately, that cause you much disdain. And then I am going to put phone log for calls between yourself and Chris Watts. Your phone number is 720
656 9605.
And this right now is located we're at the Thornton Police Department. It's going to be moved to so this is kind of, doesn't make sense, but we're here. It's going to be moved to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. He's going to download it here, but I'm going to take it with me, just so you know. It's not staying here.
Okay.
They're not going to retain any of this. This comes with me.
Okay.
Okay?
Is there anything else you want on there? I think that's about...
That's it. I mean, I don't have social media. I don't really have anything else you guys can poll.
I don't really have. See, notice the word really got slid in there. She also needed 2 denials. She needed the second denial to back up the first. Did you notice that? Deceptive markers, in they go.
Okay.
Is there anything else you know of that could help us with this that is not on this sheet?
As far as like data?
That's on your phone?
No.
Questions a question. Hesitates. No. She can help in many, many ways. She has done everything she can possibly do to not help with regards to the data. In fact, she's destroyed it. And she won't tell them the apps that they've been using. They've been deleted too. And she told Chris Watts to delete his. This is the opposite of helping. Somebody put in the comments that there is some official that believes she's been helping. Who on earth is that? Have they got 0 training? Did they even watch the video? Let's carry on.
I mean, everything we did was like text and talk, pretty much. I mean, and like I said, any pictures that I have.
Pretty much. Are you hearing this? Pretty much. That means this isn't true. Not really. Pretty much. Unbelievable.
Like, even if you were to restore all my regular photos, there's so many pictures in there and you wouldn't even know which ones were for him and which ones weren't. But any picture.
She's now telling him what he would or he wouldn't know in his investigation. Her arrogance is off the charts.
That I wanted to send to him, I sent via text. So if you guys go through the text and the attachments, you will have everything that wasn't said verbally and was done via text. But I think that's it.
You will have everything that wasn't done verbally and everything that was done via text. That's what you will have. Do you see her problem? Her brain, at conversational speed, has told him the truth. You'll have everything that was said verbally that remains on those text chats, and everything that was said via text. She is as good as telling him, but not pretty much. That's pretty much it. But you're not going to get. And she told him straight on the first interview, and it ain't going to happen, she said. You're not going to get the truth because I've deleted all of that. Do you see? She told him what he is going to get. There is a level of deception here which is extremely concerning. This isn't just someone ashamed of being involved with a murderer and having sexual communications via text on the telephone. It's far more than that. She's deliberately interfering with the investigation of the murder of 2 little children and their mother. She's withholding and she's non-cooperative.
Like I don't have anything else. As far as like
I don't have notice, self-censorship. I don't have anything else. I don't have is sensitive. She is being deceptive constantly. Let's go back to the Veroscope analysis itself. So do you remember there's so many things to remember, so many ways to spot lies, but we're going to learn them all. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. The claim is very different than the content. So we always bear in mind what the claim was, and then we measure the content as well against it. When someone describes what they did, listen separately to what they say they were doing and what they actually describe doing. And when the two contradict each other, it's worth asking which one reflects reality. Now, they can be just slightly out of harmony, but they're out of harmony. The content tends to be harder to fabricate because the brain has to fill in the details. And it often fills them in from what actually happened. It can be borrowed, even when that contradicts the claim. So, we should get married. We should have babies. I want to live with you. I need to meet your children now. Let's cut the mum out. It's not his wife. It's not Shanann. She said the mum. Why did she choose the word mum? Do forgive me if I'm going a little bit too fast. You can obviously pause the video. For those who saw the previous video, all of this will make probably more sense. That's why I'm going through it with a little bit of speed. So can you see how her claim is different than the content of the actual interview? Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's Veroscope. We'll continue learning a little bit more about exactly how Channel 2 works in the next video, or if you're interested in how we mark up documents and further cases, do look on the main Veroscope YouTube channel, where there's a couple of hundred videos there, or consider joining as a member, where we're going into more formal detail, and also we're going into more of the science, and also hopefully we'll be going over some cold cases live, real cold cases where we can make a difference. Okay, so look forward to chat with you in the comments, and speak to you soon.